Jackson, and today on the call with me is Ben Glass, Tom Foster, and our special guests, Dave Fries, Bob Battle, Charlie Hofheimer. Right, and so I thought there was one other person here. So anyway, but the topic today is trust. How is trust factored into decisions that people make whenever they're going to be selecting you as their lawyer, their attorney? And so that's the topic today. So Ben, it's great to be on the call with you as always.
Well, thanks, Rem, and I'm really excited today because, as you can imagine, we've got these really super guests here live at headquarters of Foster Web Marketing in Fairfax, Virginia. And the reason that they've all come to Fairfax is that we're working on some really neat stuff that we'll be announcing in April at our summit. They are each really leaders in their specific niches: DUI, probate and estate planning, and in family law, divorce. And Jim Brown, who couldn't be with us on this call, is a leader in bankruptcy. And so big announcement coming in April. But what we wanted to do today, a little bit different from what we've done in the past, is really have a roundtable discussion. Invite those who are listening in or watching this on the internet to use the chat box there to ask questions. This is a great opportunity if you are not a personal injury attorney in particular, but you are a DUI attorney or a probate and estate attorney, to ask these guys questions because they know. And what we're doing here today is we're following up on a webinar we did just a couple of weeks ago where we talked about this whole concept of selling trust, when trust is a big part of what we do in a very crowded market. And just by brief review, consumers have so many choices today, and every one of you, when you talk to someone on the phone or in your office, you know that they have gone all over the internet, they have gone to the attorney rating sites, they have gone to, Tom, I don't know, all those other little local rating sites that there are out there, and they are checking you out. If you do, sometimes I go over to the gym in the middle of the day and I'm on a treadmill for a little bit if it's frozen like it has been here, and I'm still stunned by the number of lawyers on TV ads. In some cases, we've got 3 flat screens up there, and they're all running lawyer ads. So it's a very crowded marketplace. We've invited Dan Kennedy to come to our event in April, and he's going to do a complete 2-hour session on selling trust. But I wanted to pick the brains of these folks here a little bit about their specific market niches. So let's just talk. Bob and Dave and Charlie, could you just each briefly tell us what you hear from your clients as they are looking for lawyers? What issues are they telling you about that they're looking at to differentiate you from the next lawyer down the hall?
Ben, this is Dave. I do trust and estates work, and one of the things that we've been hearing over and over again as Tom has helped us to make video, 1, higher quality, and 2, more prominent on the website, is that people say, I really felt like I knew you by the time I came in. That's good to me for a number of reasons. One is they've gone through all the credentials, they've gone through the reports. Most of these people that come in have ordered a report, but they consistently report that video made them feel comfortable with me. It's also true that most of them, after they meet me, say, you are way more serious on your video than you are in person, and you should let that come through, but I think that could be dangerous. But video has really helped people to another level of trust building so that when they come in, they're already sold. You just have to make sure that the process that you're going to use will work for them. And I go through that with them. I tell them right from the start, and then people report, I came in because of the video, and I hired you today because you were right up front with me about what this was going to cost and the process I was going to go through. So they love being informed.
You know, and let me just butt in there. One of the things we're going to be doing a session on at the summit is video, because really, you brought up a really important point there, Dave, is what do we want to display in our videos? And those of you who have looked at my videos on YouTube and some of Bob's, I know, some of them are kind of funny and some of them are outrageous and some of them are the very serious sort of studio type videos. And I think that there is a place for each one of those. I think it is a mistake to just have the sort of super serious,
Absolutely.
I'm in an office and I'm standing in front of my books that nobody ever uses books anymore, right? But Bob, you know, your folks have very tight deadlines. They typically have been arrested. They have a court date coming up. I know in your industry, in the DUI and traffic cases, a lot of lawyers are competing on price. You charge the most. How do you overcome that, and what questions are your clients asking?
Sure. The big thing, I mean, sort of the basis of everything that we're talking about today is sort of a fundamental principle. People do business with people they like and trust, all things being equal. All things being unequal, people do business with people they like and trust. And what people want, as Dave said, they want straight answers. So I am the only person who is willing to go out there. You'll see a lot of personal injury lawyers talk about the bad guy being the insurance company, but in the DUI, my opinion, and it's controversial, and I don't shy away from it a bit, is that the bad guy is the lazy, what we refer to in the National College of DUI Defense, dump truck lawyers. There are lawyer directories that advertise, and they say, hey, look, DUI defendants, they have a lot of money, and they wind up pleading guilty most of the time anyway. And so what I am saying is I'm educating the people and saying, look, here's the questions you need to ask. And that's really what's first and foremost, because as you said, Ben, they have a very tight deadline, is what are the questions they need to ask, and what are the differences in qualifications among lawyers?
And, you know, just from what I've seen, how other DUI attorneys market, it's, you know, you don't have to absolutely be the very, very best marketer in your city, because most lawyer marketing in general is, it's all the same. It's pretty crappy stuff. And so you have been able to really control potential clients, have them drive literally hundreds of miles to see you by putting out this wealth of information at your website. Let me flip over here to Charlie. For those of you who don't know, Charlie Hofheimer, a niche within a niche, a family lawyer, a divorce lawyer in Virginia Beach, Virginia, but he only represents women. And you know, that presents sort of another layer of challenge for you, because you actually have halved your potential marketplace. But talk to us a little bit about what your future clients are expressing as concerns to you, and how you start to establish a relationship.
Well, first and foremost, the traditional thought is that we've halved our client base, when in fact we have enlarged our client base enormously by virtue of the fact that we have excluded one of the spouses in our representation. And I think that I want to go back to what Dave said when he was talking about video. There was an underlying assumption there, and that was the report or the book or the CD that you give away. And I don't think anything establishes credibility and trust any more than that initial book that you send about your practice, where you're really telling people this is the way it is, this is what's going to happen, and you're putting it out there in the public. It isn't behind closed doors. You're telling the story, and from that, I think that initial trust is created. And also, I think the fact that there's so much information on our websites, and you know, so much content, and that I just have women come to me all the time saying the fact that we give so much information, the fact there's a book, and we also do 5 seminars a month in our market area, so that they can come and see us. They can come see any one of the attorneys in our office and get a sense of, do I like that person? Do they speak to me? Can I ask them questions? Did I feel that their responses were truthful? So among the ways to create trust, the book, the website, and the seminars.
Now, you know, I've been to all of your websites, and I've seen your videos, and I would encourage you, and we'll go around the room real quick here in a minute so that people can go look at your stuff, but each one of you put out a lot of information. And do you ever fear that, having now given all of this information, people are just going to go and represent themselves, or to even take your information and go to another lawyer? How does that play into the mindset now of producing a lot of stuff? Let me ask Charlie about that first, because you on top of the videos, you said you're running seminars, I think just about every weekend. You guys just do a lot of stuff.
Right, and interestingly enough, our book is in probably every family lawyer's office in Tidewater, and we like that, actually. That's a benefit. And so I think it's really good that other attorneys are aware that we're informing the public, because that just gives us a top spot in the minds of the prospect that, hey, those guys, I can't compete with that. They're the mindset that they can. And so they can, but they just don't see themselves giving that much. And, you know, leaders are but trusted servants. We all have to serve in order to become the leaders for these folks.
You know, David, to a certain extent, you're also competing against a lot of the self-help sites and books, and people would say, you know, I can go on the internet and I can get a will. Why would I, you know, hire someone who, frankly, is expensive as you are? So how do you sort of balance the giving away of information with the prospect that they just might go do estate planning by themselves?
Sure. And in fact, we probably give them enough information that some people would feel that's appropriate, which is its own danger. So rather than shy away from the fact that we could be commoditized, Ben, we confront it head on. I have video posts, I have articles on why would someone use LegalZoom or a form and when it's appropriate and when it's not, and what the pros and cons are. Because frankly, we don't want them. And really good marketing, and I know there will be people that disagree with this, but you know, a lot of people that have taught us how to market have said really good marketing should attract the people you want, who value what I have to bring to the table, and should repulse those that do not. And mine repulses them not in a negative way, but in a positive way, which is if they're going to go use LegalZoom, at least we want them to use it as an informed consumer. But we don't want that person calling our office or wasting paralegal time and secretarial time and lawyer time and resources. We want to help the people that want to pay, want personal attention, want bundled services that give them lots of value. And so we make that clear. We have kind of a coaching model of marketing, which is we give them lots and lots of information, tools to evaluate it, and they come to the conclusion of what they want. We haven't told them.
Yeah, and of course the big point that's hidden in what David just said is, if I were to ask you who is your client, it's not everyone who needs an estate plan. It's not necessarily everyone who's got arrested last night for DUI. In my practice, it's not everyone who had an accident. And it's vital that you know who your perfect client is and that you design marketing that is directed to that client and will shun or repel those who do not fit your perfect client profile. And you know, we have a slide up here on the screen about the language of trust, and you would think that this would be common sense. And I want to ask Bob a question and then come back to Tom Foster, who's here at websites. But you know, in talking to DUI defendants, how do you relate to them? And I've been in your office. I've seen the cool little camouflage room and the war room and all that stuff. But how do you talk to them so that they view you both as respected authority, but someone who really understands what they're going through?
And really the key is not so much as putting the pressure on them. I mean, I'm surprised at a lot of other lawyers' websites. I'm sure we all see this, that as soon as you get on there, click to call us. You know, some live chat starts immediately. And it's like, why? You haven't given them a reason to call you. By giving them the book for free, you let them come into the conversation, you know, answer the questions that is already going on in their head. So instead of me-centered, it's centered on what the client is going through. And really, I think it's real good to compare and contrast the two major areas that I focus on, DUI versus reckless driving, speeding. Well, people know a DUI is a big deal. So my consumer guide for DUI is called How to Choose a DUI Lawyer in Virginia, because that's what they want to know, because they never thought they'd go through the process. Whereas my reckless driving speeding book is called The Shocking Truth About Reckless Driving Speeding in Virginia, because people don't know it's a big deal. It's a Class 1 misdemeanor. So basically, from having done this for 26 years, my consumer guides in a non-threatening, free way, rather than asking them to call me, lead them to the conclusion, hey, this guy answered the questions. He obviously knows the stuff, so they're going to contact me.
Well, let me ask Tom here, because I know this comes up in just about every discussion you have with attorneys, and now let's go to the technical side of the language of trust. And you know, it doesn't make any difference if you have got a terrific website if you can't be found really on the first page of Google. And I know you have these battles because lawyers want to rank for certain vanity terms, and we know in the Google pay-per-click world they pay a lot of money for terms that lawyers use in conferences talking to each other. How should they be optimizing pages on their website?
Well, really, I mean, you said it right there. They shouldn't. I mean, you need to obviously come up for the vanity stuff. I mean, that's important. But really, you need to come up for what people are searching for. And so the same questions that they come in and ask you in your office are the same questions that you should be answering on your website, no matter what you do. And what I still see, even from seasoned lawyers that know this stuff, coaching members, they still have to lead with their own. You know, you're welcome to the law firm of Umpty Frats and Umpty Frats. We've got 150 combined years of blah, blah, blah. That doesn't do anything to establish trust that you're going to be able to answer the question that that particular visitor has. And that's really just the beginning of, if you answer the question, that is the beginning of establishing trust. And so it's a very simple, removing you from the first part of that conversation will help you tremendously. And of course, just like Ben pointed out, is making sure that you're coming up for the keywords that will really result in the cases that you're looking for, not just to pat yourself on the back or, you know, wow, I'm #1 for Virginia medical malpractice attorney, which Ben is, and he's been that way for years, and undoubtedly it's not his #1 conversion keyword. And so there's the conversion keywords are what you're supposed to be looking at, and the conversion keywords generally are the long-tail keywords specific to what people are searching for.
You know, one of the things we preach without end at Great Legal Marketing is that as you go about marketing and advertising your practice, you really have a choice. And you can sort of play in the same big cesspool that everyone else is playing in, using the same messages, you know, the only thing different being the name of your firm, and things like that. Or you can try to, what's on the screen here now, try to shout a different message, not by shouting louder, but by changing your messaging. So, you know, while I've got these guys here, and by the way, if you have a question, go ahead and use the chat box on family law and probate and estate planning and DUI criminal in particular. Go ahead and send your questions in, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. But let me ask each one of these guys. Charlie, now, you know, Divorce for Women Only is in itself a unique message. But what are some of the messages that you use to really attract interest so that they will start to engage one way or another, either through the website, by requesting the book, or by picking up the phone and calling your office?
Well, I think one of the ways that we try to engage is to let them know that it's all right if they come to see us to reconcile, that it's okay to look at separation as opposed to divorce. In other words, our job is really to give all of the options available to a woman when she's having problems with her marriage, whether it's going to a therapist, whether it's a financial planner, and to educate her to all the resources available to her in the community so that she can make good choices for both herself and for her children. And so we view the education model as the model that best works for us in dealing with our prospects, dealing with the message that we want to deliver, and ultimately dealing with the clients that we develop.
So while we have you on this subject, you, more than anyone else I know, I think, have developed a huge network of what I would call other herd leaders.
Correct.
Because, as you said, part of your educational process is to direct these women to the right financial, social, psychological resources. And can you just talk about one or two things that you do? And I know what you don't do is let me take you out to lunch and tell you how great I am. I mean, that's like you would be kicked out of GLM if you did that. But one or two things, one or two things that you do to cultivate now the herd leaders who are become terrific referral sources for your firm.
Well, really, since I started my practice, the therapists were the gatekeepers that I most wanted to influence. And so we make sure that they have at least 5 copies of our book all the time. We send them letters at least every other month or certainly quarterly where they can order books. We have a teleseminar on great therapist marketing. I haven't told you about that one yet, but and where we teach therapists how to market. We also have a number of, my daughter has a book on custody, so we basically educate the therapist, and they call me all the time thanking me for, you know, keeping the books in stock so that they can give them out to their clients. And also our seminars are huge with therapists because they don't see any risk to themselves if they refer somebody to a seminar as opposed to referring them to a specific attorney who might not do as good a job as they had anticipated.
Right. I mean, it gives each of your referral sources an opportunity to say, to not just say, go to Charlie Hofheimer, he's great, but here is a book, a CD, a DVD, or a seminar that now it's a low barrier to entry for that potential client to allow her to see a little bit of what you are about. Dave, let me ask you a little bit about messaging, because I know that your niche is also, I mean, all these niches are highly competitive, frankly. But what are you doing in particular to attract the what I would call the high dollar estate planner?
Well, one of the things is that that we found most useful, I first heard articulated this way by Evan Pagan a few years ago. He said, if you can articulate your potential client's problem as well or better than they can, they'll assume that you have the answer to that problem.
Absolutely.
You have to be, sorry, Ben, you have to be prepared to deliver, though.
Well, you have to be prepared to deliver, but it also is the thing that, you know, rather than say, hey, we're experienced. We've got 27 and a half years of combined experience, or 147, but you're taking this from a psychological perspective 2 or 3 steps deeper.
Mm-hmm.
You are going inside their head.
And I'll tell you how we do that. That's the real key.
Okay.
The real key is just what you said, is we don't want to guess how they're thinking about it and describing it. We want to know, and we want to use their words, and we want to use those words to create the blogs and the materials that we give them. So how do you harvest that? Well, one is you behave completely differently when you're with the client than most lawyers do, which is that you pay attention to and make notes about how they respond to questions about what they're afraid of and what they're concerned about. Like, one of the things we've observed, for example, is that while men ultimately, this is a grotesque overgeneralization, but in my practice, with my particular market demographic, which is, I know it real well, 50 to 62 married couples with children, the men ultimately have to agree for the appointment to take place, but women are really driving it. They're pestering, pestering, pestering. So we found out a lot of information. Once we ran a series of articles that said, give your wife what she really wants for Mother's Day, bring her in and get this estate planning taken care of. Don't trust us, ask her. And person after person came in and said, I thought you were an idiot. Why would my wife want this for Mother's Day? And I would show it to her and say, look at this idiot, what he says you want for Mother's Day. And she would say, I've been trying to get you in here for 10 years. So once we knew that women were driving this process and having trouble closing the deal to get the husband to come along for a host of reasons we think we figured out, we were able to work with that. But here's what we do. We're starting to use a bunch of sites where to get our report, you also have to answer this question. What's the thing that's worrying you the most right now about your estate planning? What is the thing that gives you the most sleepless nights about doing your estate planning for your family? Well, one of the things we found out was divorce was a big driver. People wanted to protect their kids, their inheritance from divorce. They have to behave in a completely different, and I might add, more complex and expensive way. Like, they pay me more money if they want to protect against this. So if we found out that they would over and over again say, I don't want my kids to lose this in a divorce. Most trust estate lawyers say, well, once you've given it to them, they can lose it in a divorce. We don't. We say, here's what you can do. So we use their words to create the marketing and the tools that we're going to provide.
That's absolutely critical, and I'm going to ask Bob a question here in a second, but it's absolutely vital, and I do the same thing you do, Dave, is during that conversation with a client that's live, I'm asking them, why did you decide to call any lawyer today, and I ask them, what is it I could do for you at the end of the case that would make you a raving fan? And in the personal injury world, you know what?
That's a brilliant question, by the way, everybody. That was right. So write that one down, which I am doing.
Well, and the answer I don't hear is, I need you to get me as much money as you can, as quick as you can. And yet most personal injury advertising is all about getting the money you deserve. That's not what I hear. Maybe my clients are the only ones in the world like this. That's not what I hear them saying. They're telling me things like, I want to protect my credit rating. I want to make sure that this doesn't happen to somebody else. I want to get my bills paid. I want to be reimbursed for my lost wages. And so there's a disconnect between the messages that we send out and the conversation that's already going on in the client's mind. Bob, let me ask you, because I know we have some DOI attorneys on this webinar, how does that work? How does the messaging work in your niche? So what are the pain points that you are, I know, making greater and then solving for these people?
Right. Well, one of the first things, just on what everybody else is talking about, I'm amazed at how many lawyers, when they get someone charged with DUI, don't realize these guys are just been through maybe the most traumatic experience of their life. First thing I always say is I engage with them. I say, how are you doing? How are you holding up? Did you miss a day of work? Is your job at jeopardy? Were you out with the boys when your wife thought you were at home? I mean, the person's life has been interrupted, and something horrible has gone on, and sort of right off the bat they appreciate it. And the amazing thing is other lawyers are not asking this particular question. But so what I do as far as my marketing is, it's very easy letting people know exactly what could happen. Conviction versus a non-conviction obviously could lead to loss of job, could lead to the inability to do family things, because you can't go do the unpaid coaching of the kids' little league or soccer team. You can't even drive the kids to soccer practice. So I just point out to people sort of the differences between what happens if you get a lawyer who's able to resolve it more favorably than someone else on people's lives.
And I would point out, if you're on this call and you don't know this, that Bob does know free consultations. I mean, what are you charging, 400?
Yeah, I'll do a phone consultation, but to come to see me in my office, I charge a $400 flat fee for the consultation, and if they decide to hire me, I'll credit that against my overall legal fee.
And the thing is, once someone has paid $400 and driven sometimes hundreds of miles to see him, it's not often that they are going to then not hire him. Rem, I know we've got some questions here, and today you're being quiet because we have all of these great lawyers vying for microphone time, but what questions do we have?
Well, we got a few of them, and Charlie, obviously somebody's watching your videos, and one question is, there's a video apparently where you've got a candy bar flying into your hand.
Yes.
And the question is, have you been getting what kind of reaction are you getting from women with that?
I'm really glad that was asked. That's probably been the most appreciated part, believe it or not, of people coming in to see us, is we give them a candy bar at the end with the thought that, it's got our name and logo and everything. And the thought behind it was we wanted women who had gone through a very emotional experience to sort of have a positive experience as they're leaving. And so Mary Elizabeth Davis in our office thought of it, and it has been hugely successful. People tell me when do I get my candy bar when they come into the office. They ask me about it. I thought it was really hokey, but the truth of the matter is that it's really been a terrific little interaction that has taken place on the website. So, and the women every time smile as they're leaving the office.
All right.
Yep. It's one of those things that you just don't think about, and when you see it happen, you go, oh my gracious.
Do you think I ought to give them a shot of Jack Daniels?
Only you would.
Not great.
Yeah, but truth be told, Bob, and this is a very high-level secret, but years ago when you showed us in the mastermind group the bobblehead, we all kind of scoffed at the idea, but that is a thing that's become a very central part of your marketing. most lawyers would probably, in fact, I know lawyers have laughed at you and looked down at you for your silly bobblehead. But just real quick, yeah, tell us about the bobblehead.
What I had created, obviously, with my baseball career ending after high school, I was not going to get a bobblehead made at the major league level. But I actually created the Bob Battle bobblehead. And what I do is, when someone would refer me a case, I used to send them a nice bottle of champagne, which they'd appreciate with, whoever they shared that with. But then it would be out of their, mind. With the bobblehead, I tell them, hey, put this in your office, and it's got my URL right there. And other people walk into the office and they say, what is that crazy thing? It's, oh, this is DUI lawyer in Richmond. And so it keeps going and going. And then I, in my newsletter, make the bobblehead. I'm sort of the boring married guy. The bobblehead's the swinger who's out hanging out with the rich and famous. So I've taken off, and then you want to get on my new bobbattlenews.com is my newsletter. But it's really been something that, because it is unique and that people hang on to it forever, unless their dog gets it or their kid gets it, which he can't quite make it there, it's been a very, very valuable marketing piece.
Rem, next question.
Yeah, this one again to Charlie. How did you start the seminar process and get people to attend your seminars?
Started out by putting ads in a local newspaper. I went to a church and they donated the room. And the first seminar, one person showed up, and I gave a 3-hour seminar to one person, and it just grew over time. I kept sending brochures to the therapist every month, and I'd send them 5 or 10 brochures to pass out. And pretty soon they were doing it. They were passing them out. And I think this month we will exceed 51 women at this month, at this February's seminars. So it shows that, it just accrues over time.
By the way, if you ever do a seminar, at the very least, you should audio record the whole thing and make that into product, get it transcribed. It now becomes articles and blogs. And if you can, go ahead and hire a good videographer so that you have something else that people can ask for that you can mail to them.
Ben, here's a question that I know I hear a lot. You hear, we all hear this, and here's what people want to know. What is the typical time when a potential client comes to your website, then contacts your office, comes in and becomes a client?
Yeah, it's a great question, and of course it varies. I mean, at our website now with all of Tom's stuff, we have everything from a live chat system that is manned 24/7, which has been a tremendous attractor of qualified leads for us, to, of course, the forms, to book requests. I'm going to answer a slightly different question, but what we found in our personal injury and medical malpractice world is that our top clients, so serious injury, good liability, good health insurance plan, typically good uninsured motorist coverage, are signing a fee contract with us anywhere from 4 to 12 months, 4 to 12 months after they have started to come through our system one way or the other. And so, yes, while they will start to engage us many different points along the line, if you think about it, this is why this happens. Someone who's been in a serious accident has got a lot of things going on. In fact, it may be a relative or spouse, somebody who is actually making the first contact. They're not ready to hire a lawyer. They did not wake up that morning and go from not thinking about it at all to, I'm going to hire a lawyer today. It just doesn't happen. And I imagine that in the family law area, in the estate and probate area, it doesn't happen. The time frame is a lot more squeezed if you've been arrested for DUI. But they have what our friend Dan Kennedy calls a moving parade of interest. And so this is why it's vital, and we had it up on the screen before, and we'll go back to it in a minute, that you have some sort of a follow-up campaign. I mean, it's the third bullet on this slide, have a conversion system for your prospects. There is so much, quote, money being left on the table by lawyers who think, oh, I had a conversation with a client today on the phone and they didn't hire me. If you believe they've hired somebody else, you're usually wrong. They have simply not made any decision at all. And, you know, in our office now, Rem, we have a very complex and both real mail, packages, reports, and also email follow-up campaign. But if you have nothing to follow up, you're simply leaving opportunity on the line. Now, Bob, I know you have follow-up, but as you said earlier, they're on a very tight leash. And I know both Dave and Charlie have, you know, Charlie, in fact, before this call, you were telling me of a pretty extensive follow-up campaign that we're always fine-tuning these things, too.
Right. Well, what we discovered with people who ordered our book was it took them between 60 and 90 days to make the first appointment, and our initial consultation's $200. So what we did was we took our 3-week follow-up campaign, added extensively to now it's 72 days of follow-up, and it's 23 emails, because we have a confidentiality issue. We can't send other things out by mail, etc. So it's all done by email. And, you know, it's obviously meeting a need and continuing to answer questions throughout the time that they're thinking about the ultimate result.
Well, you said 72 days.
Right.
Now, somebody is going to say that's too much. No one will read all that stuff. You're bugging them. I know my answer is, you know, what's the alternative? But what has been your actual experience now?
Well, if they don't want to get any more, they hit unsubscribe. It's very simple. And
you don't have to forget
many.
about you.
Huh?
They'll forget about you
Right.
if you don't stay in contact with them.
People don't realize that after 5 years, most people can't name their divorce attorney.
They can't. I know that because they can't name the guy who put their back together 5 years ago.
It's been the same in the average turnaround for trust estate lawyers is like a decade. You know, you do a will, you don't
Right.
go back in. And our lawyers think, oh, they'll remember me, I did this great job. And we keep telling them they do not remember you. And one of the things that anybody listening should remember is it sounds like we're always talking about these follow-ups and things like that with prospects. We recently started to move all our clients, when their documents are signed, onto another autoresponder list,
Right.
where now they get a drip campaign from us. At 2 months, they get a thing, Dave asked me to remind you that your will has to go in your safe deposit box or whatever, and then at another point this and another point that. So at 3 years, it says a lot may have gone on in the last 3 years. We also send out emails reminding them what would trigger them to come back sooner. And while we're early into this, that's already happening. And we're trying to bring that average down from, well, we think for us it's about 7 years now instead of 10. And we're trying to bring that down more. But more importantly, going back to existing clients who already have faith and trust in you, the topic of today's call, that facilitates referrals, which are of the best kind. They already know and trust you. So when they're hearing from you, they may not say, I need him again today, but my son who's getting married, my daughter who just bought this life insurance, all these things that we're talking about that trigger trust estate planning needs, boom.
Here's another thing I would think would be very important in your industry is that as Congress continues to tinker with the tax code and things are changes, that is opportunity to speak to your past clients and to your prospects. However, if that's the only time you've ever spoken to them, they'll
be cynical.
Well, cynical. They may not even remember you, and they will be, well, this guy's trying to sell me something.
Right.
If instead you have stayed in contact in a friendly, informative, interesting, and in your case, sometimes wild and crazy way.
Bordering occasionally on embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
And the rest of
My friends been
you know, they are permitting you to market to them and to remind them, and they see you now as even more of a respected authority. Look, I know we have some more questions here. What I want to do, though, is tell folks that, of course, we've got a conference in April. It's the Restoring the Trust Conference, 2 days here in Northern Virginia. We're about 65% sold out. We have special guest speaker Dan Kennedy is going to speak twice on us. He's put together a very special and one-of-a-kind program about selling when trust is a thing that needs to be sold for lawyers. And, of course, I'm very excited because I've studied Dan and paid him a ton of money over the years, and I'm paying him a ton of money to come to our event, and it's going to be terrific. We'll also have each of the folks that are on the phone today are going to be with us, and we've got, I mean, the sort of sneak preview is that we are going to have some very niche-specific programs in Great Legal Marketing very shortly. And what I thought we would do is, if you don't know anything about us, if you don't know anything about the program, what you want to do is go to GLM Summit, glmsummit.com, read the information, download the form.
That's on the last slide as well.
If you, okay, great, Ren, thanks. And if you register before Sunday, midnight Sunday, which is today is the 20. February 20th. Thanks, Bob. Bob knows all the two-day dates because guys have court appearances. If we get your... If we get your fax-in registration by then, what we are going to do, we did a terrific conference in Chicago just in December, and this would be really good if you've never been to one of our conferences. Well, we've got a complete DVD, CD set from that conference that we've been selling for $600. We are going to mail you that if you register for the April conference by midnight this Sunday, the 20th. And so that's our little bonus incentive today. Rem, next question?
Yeah, this one goes out to Tom. Tom, how do you research and find the long-tail keywords that people are using to search for an attorney in their local areas?
Great question.
Well, I mean, it's long-tail keywords are produced individually, so it's not something that you can find because everybody's going to structure their strings in a different way. The important thing is that you have information that ties the big parts of those keyword strings, like the geolocation, or like shoulder dystocia in Fairfax, or whatever. And then people will type in all the other words around that. But you want to make sure that you're coming up for that. And then if you're trying to get shoulder dystocia cases or birth injury cases, then you need to write content that goes into detail on each one of those specifics.
But let me interrupt you because they want to know how can they get that information now. And it's built into Google Analytics. It's built into all of your websites. Now, this isn't a Google Analytics webinar per se, but just kind of anyone who's come to their site, that information is available today.
Right.
Even
if
they're
you
not
have a brand new website, you're not going to know that. And so, like, you got to work with somebody that has experience with other websites that are, that are going for the same keyword structures, which obviously we do. But you're right, Ben. What happens is that we analyze what conversion keywords have happened. So we look at Google Analytics. We look at what people are searching for, how visitors are coming to the site based on those long search terms, those long tail. And then sometimes you're coming up for stuff that you had no idea because of the way Google puts your content together on your website. And then that will also teach you what more articles you should be writing about.
And by the way, it's our experience that sometimes we get lots of traffic on a topic that we didn't know people would search this way, and we don't want that. So we start to build other pages and maybe even occasionally take that content down.
And for people not familiar with Foster Web Marketing, get bobbattlellaw.com is my website. The great thing is someone fills out my website. At the bottom, in addition to the information they've filled in, Foster Web Marketing includes all their clients what search terms they use. So for me, especially on reckless driving, speeding, I have a statewide referral network, and often, although they haven't mentioned where they're charged, at the bottom I can look at a search term and say, oh, this is Lexington, Virginia, where I don't go, and boom, I can just send the lead on to someone else. And that's just a huge advantage.
And let me just continue on that because it's not a one-time event. SEO is not a one-time event. Like, you don't say, I want to be on page 1 for Virginia medical malpractice attorney, and I'm done. That's not how it works because those aren't high conversion keywords. Those are very popular keywords based on other lawyers searching for them, and they're very popular for AdWords because Google, got rich on the backs of lawyers, spending ridiculous amount of money on those kinds of words. But those aren't necessarily in that structure the highest conversion keywords. And so what you need to do is you need to think about all the other areas, and all the other areas of the things that you do for your clients or that clients have ever asked you for, and start adding that content. That's where you have to start. And then by adding that content, the way that Dave brought up, you will learn how Google is putting together other search strings about your content, and you'll come up for stuff that you had no idea. For instance, one of our top search keywords that we come up for is web safe colors. And the reason why we come up for that, and it's consistent every month, web safe colors, that has nothing to do with what I want. But the reason why we come up for that is because we added a page to our site to send clients to choose colors for their website. So it's hex color, like tell me exactly the color, because they'll be like, I want gold, and there's 8,000 different versions of gold. Anyway, so that's something that came up, and now what do you do with that? You can say, this is junk, or you can turn it into something else. And so if you're already coming up and you're getting 200 visits on a page or on a topic that you're like, why is this happening? Don't just shun that traffic. Turn that into something else. Like, we're going to do a book on how lawyers should, consider web safe colors and how they'll impact, their website, because I know that we got a lot of people going there.
One of the things we talked about earlier was, listening to the conversation the client has with you in your office. And one of the things I'll be talking about at the conference, I'll be doing actually a session on this, is taking a short snippet of that conversation and in about an hour creating massive internet footprint through video, through text, through blogging in a way that, if I can do it, if you guys have seen some of my backyard videos, anybody could do it.
Dave, this one's for you. It's this. How do you increase your conversion rate with typical estate planning procrastination?
Oh, that's a good question.
It's a great question, and thank you for reaffirming that I was here by directing it to me. I appreciate that. I was feeling a little sad. I'm very fragile. But here's the answer, is that you have to find out the leverage point with the clients. In other words, there are certain things that really underline pain for the client in not doing it, and they don't want to confront those. And to the extent that you could get them to confront them, you will overcome it. The other thing is, we use part of our process so it's not as big a problem for us. In other words, we are constantly publishing stuff, and once they ask for a report, they get information from us all the time. So a lot of times the procrastination takes place before they get to see us. And by the time they come to see us, they've really worked out a lot of the issues. When I was younger and in practice, an appointment would take about half an hour longer than it does now, and the whole process would take 3 appointments on average instead of 2. And that's because our marketing materials are educating them to the high cost of procrastination and the benefits, and we've structured those materials based on the stuff that we hear from clients and their wives. Like, we're constantly saying, you don't want your wife to be afraid that you haven't done this, or you don't want your spouse, you don't want your husband to be afraid that if you pass away, they're not going to know what to do. Take that fear out of your relationship. Well, that's really going to a leverage point there, and that might get them to take action. If they think about this in a new way, I'm not just procrastinating, I'm damaging my marital relationship. Yeah. There's enough stress there, and I'm a busy executive, just the kind of guy that we want, or just the kind of woman we want. So we're doing 2 things. One, we're trying to educate them in a way where the procrastination takes place before they come to see us. The other thing we do in our process is when you have your first meeting with the client, you schedule the meeting to sign the documents. So they have to cancel that, and we never let them cancel it without rescheduling the new one. And we tell them that both in the blogs and the articles, and when they call and when they come in, we have a process where you're going to have your documents signed in the next 6 weeks. And we also use that because it takes a long time to get to see me. We also turn that disadvantage into an advantage. We say it takes a long time to see Dave, but we're going to schedule those appointments right now so that you come in to see him, you get your documents, you have your next appointment, you sign them, and then if there are more issues, we'll go on to phase 2, but we've completed this. And people love this idea that it's going to be done and out of their lives and they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and to loop that back around, because they've gotten to know you and they've gotten so much information and help from you along the way, they're in a higher position of trust, and so they're ready to submit themselves, to the process. And then that's the same thing you're finding, right? People come in. Well, they're not interviewing you now. They're asking if you would please possibly consider.
Oh,
right? Sure.
I mean, they come in bringing our books, and we actually have one of our books is it's a client diary, and I actually had one lady saying, well, I am interviewing another lawyer, but I'm halfway through your diary filling it out, and of course she hired us. But let me just get back to what Dave said, because the way most personal injury lawyers do that is they run advertising that says, hire us quick, your rights are being violated, and you could get screwed. We do it by predicting the things that are coming down the pike. So I'm telling you, an adjuster is going to be calling you, then they're going to be sending you forms, then a lawyer might be calling you, and then the doctors want to know, which insurance company do we send your medical bill to? And again, it loops right back to what you said early on in this call, Dave, is we're already inside of their heads predicting what's going to happen, and then as they see that stuff, oh yeah, you told me that this was going to happen. Now I need to talk to you.
And your whole theory is don't call anybody or do anything until you have this essential information. So you're the trusted source that hasn't tried to sell them anything. You've given them the tools to evaluate everybody out there.
Yeah, I mean,
you may not need a lawyer.
So our tagline is, free books before you sign any form. One of them, anyway.
Hey, listen, we got to watch our time, and I've got a DUI lawyer that really wants to ask Bob a couple questions. So, Bob, there's going to be 3 of them here. So, I mean, kind of rapid fire. Just give us your bet. Do you see a way that you could promote your DUI practice offering these kind of free seminars that Charlie's doing?
Yeah, but not so you go to the bars. I mean, bars, no. That's why I'm home late every night, honey. My wife is on there. Meaning you don't do your seminars to say, attention all drunks, show up at my office. You go to a bar and you say, look, I'd like to talk to your employees about serving people, over-serving people, educating them. I mean, I'm amazed, when they talk about how many drinks, 3 drinks get you to an 08 for the average-sized person, when they're talking about wine, they're talking about 5 ounces. Well, it's been shown the average pour at a bar is 6 to 8 ounces of wine. So if you're a woman and you've had 2 8-ounce drinks, that's 16 ounces. That counts as 3 drinks. You're above an 08. Whereas most people think they can have 2 drinks. So these are the type of things you can put the seminars there. And the bartenders, the wait staff, they are a tremendous source of referrals. And as Charlie said, the same therapist, the same alcohol therapist. My wife's a family doctor. She was telling me she can't believe how much alcoholism. The alcohol isn't always the tip of the iceberg of other problems. So yes, you can do these seminars, but you don't say attention all drunks. You say, hey, I'd like to come to your bar or restaurant and talk to your people about Virginia laws, or every July 1, there's always new alcohol laws, and that's how you do it.
Number 2, how do you follow up with prospects who haven't hired you?
You've really got to, because there's such a limited time, and I think that's a huge advantage in DUI practice, because the quote-unquote call to action is the ticket or the warrant of arrest. So when you request my consumer guide, immediately you get that sent to you with a letter, and this is getting way too complicated, but the marketing ethical rules change as soon as they raise their hand. So I've got a much more aggressive sort of message in that response, and then 24 hours later, did you get the book comes out, and that's it. If you haven't heard from them, but the thing about the do you get the book, I had a guy hire me because my autoresponder, which automatically shoots it out, sends it out 24 hours later. Guy picks up the phone, calls me, says, I got that follow-up email from you at 2 a.m. He says, if I got a lawyer who send that email at 2 a.m., you're hired. Sound asleep, dude.
Question number 3 then. How much time do you spend on the phone when you're giving that free telephone conversation? Short answer.
Very, very brief. As I said, commiserate. I talked about that initially. Get some of the basic facts, and then I start. I've got pre-scripted exactly how I handle the conversation for reckless driving, for DUI, but it's under 6 minutes.
Great. Last question is, Charlie, what kind of content are you sending out over those 72 days?
Well, basically, if you went, number 1, I would give the financial documents that would be helpful for them to review and to look at, the 10 biggest mistakes women make in their divorce, a whole series of what not to do and what to do, and we just stream them along.
And what's interesting too is you said that's got to be by email simply because you have security issues because Correct. Of the relationship there. But
we ask them. Let me just touch that, and it's really important. When we ask for an email address, we ask for a spouse-safe email address. Those are important 2 words to put in your marketing if you're trying to get a response in the family law field.
Great. And you know, on the PI side, I mean, you can even come to Great Legal Marketing's website and click on the button, and you, down on the left-hand side, you'll see information about these campaigns. But those consist of emails, some letters, postcard, also CDs, which are an interview that have been done. You know, that I actually often do with people that are sent out, and also transcribed. So you want to vary the modality if you can. In your situation, you don't have that security, but in the PI world, it's not that case at all. So, Ben, we're coming up on the top of the hour here. So,
well, I would just say if this listening in on this conversation has been interesting to you, then truly this is what we do for 2 full days, literally from dawn to dusk. And I'm not even talking about the conversations that go on out in the hall. When you find other like-minded attorneys in your practice niche who are spread out across the United States and Canada, who you can then connect with later on, associate with, you can join our coaching groups. If this is interesting to you, then you really owe it to yourselves, your spouses, and your office staff to come to Northern Virginia, carve out the time, April 8th and 9th, and go to, you see it on the screen, GLM Summit or glm-summit.com. Download the form. Again, if you register by Sunday, we will send you in the next 10 days or so the complete CD DVD set from the Chicago Conference. And the Chicago Conference was a very, very basic conference. I mean, frankly, the conversation you've been listening into today is a high-level conversation, but particularly if you've never been sort of exposed to the Great Legal Marketing way of building your practice, you'll want to get that CD DVD set. If you don't register but you still want it, it's $600. So look, I appreciate very much my fine guests flying in all the way to Northern Virginia for this webinar today and for our little mastermind meeting, mini mastermind we held before this. And Tom Foster for helping us in the tech side and producing these great websites, which, I mean, at the end of the day, folks, if you're not on the Internet, a lot of what we're talking about just isn't going to do anything, because guess what? Your next client is on the Internet today researching about his or her problem, and you want to be there with an interesting site and an invitation for them to raise their hand and ask something from you. So, Rem, thanks for co-hosting today. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the day. It's about 75 degrees here in the Washington, D.C. area, and we hope to see you in Northern Virginia, April 8th and 9th.